This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, and my name is Joe, and we're going to be doing a very quick training on how to analyze someone's prescription drug plan. At the start of AAP, just a couple of weeks away, today's the first day you can have conversations about people's plans. It wouldn't surprise me if you started getting some phone calls about some changes. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover this very quickly, analyze your clients and prospects. What I generally recommend you use is the Medicare website. It's very easy to use. It kind of gives you a full picture of everything. You are their resource for help, and it is a powerful tool to better help serve your clients. Before we get into it, just a couple of disclaimers. I'm going to barrel through them. This course is not intended to replace AHIP or any specific carrier training. It is meant as a guideline only. The agent is ultimately responsible for knowing all the rules. Me, the presenter, is not affiliated with CMS, Medicare, Medicaid, the United States government, any state or local government, VA, SHIP, or PACE. This course is not endorsed by any of the above. It is assumed that you have permission to call and you have documented a scope of an appointment form prior to any Part C or Part D conversation for the purposes of any training. And always, always, always refer the prospect to Medicare, Social Security, or their local Department of Social Services for information pertaining to financial support for Medicare. Some tips and good practices. You always want to ask their zip code in their county. Many zip codes fall into multiple counties across America, and you want to make sure that you select their county. Not so much for Part Ds. Part Ds tend to be statewide or region-wide, but with Medicare Advantage plans, they do vary in many areas from county to county, so it's very, very important you know their county. Second thing is you want to get accurate spelling of each medication. Accurate spelling. Why? Because the agent that doesn't get accurate spelling starts to key in the medication. They don't know how to spell it. They're going to tell the client that the medication isn't covered. So it's very, very important you get accurate spelling of each medication. You want to find out if the medication has an HCL after it, an HCTZ, an extended release, ER, or anything of that nature. It's very, very, very important. Next is frequency and dosage. Is it MGs or MCGs? Do they take it once a day? Do they take it twice a day? Do they take it 6 times a day? If it's a solution, how much per bottle and how many bottles do they go through in a month? A good tip is to ask them how much in a week and convert. Not everybody could think, well, how many eye drop bottles do I go through in a month? You know, one might last me 1 month, and the next month it might last me 3 weeks. So you ask them how many do they use in a week, and you can help them convert. If it's an injectable, you want to make them read off the entire name from the pen. Humalog has different variations of their mixtures. One is $200 and one is $600. You don't want to necessarily plug in the $600 one when it's only a $200 pen. So you want to ask them how many pens they use. Again, good practice is ask them how much they use per week and then do the conversion for them. Pharmacy name, you want to ask them, who they get their medications from. Some of the plans have preferred pharmacy networks. What I always find is a good practice as you're gathering information is you always want to ask before that if it meant saving them money, would they be open to changing pharmacies? And you're going to get one of two answers. You're going to either get, I don't care, I'll go anywhere where it's going to give me the best deal, or you'll get, I've been using so-and-so pharmacy for years, I'm not going to change. And I would even ask a second time, are you sure? If it meant saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year, would you consider going across the street to a competitor? And if they give you that no, then they're not going to change the pharmacy. But in my experience, most people, open-minded, most people will say yes to that question. And then finally, if they're not doing mail order, you want to go ahead and ask them ahead of time, if it made sense to save money, would they consider using mail order service? Okay, if it made sense saving money. And you may get a little, well, how long does that take to set up? Or I tried that before and it was a disaster and whatnot. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a disaster this time. Our experience is it takes about 10 or 15 minutes on the phone to set it up. It's one call. It's like going to a different pharmacy to switch your prescriptions. You just tell the pharmacist person behind the counter that you want to bring all your scripts over from XYZ pharmacy. They take a copy of your license, copy of your insurance card, and they tell you to come back in 20 minutes. You walk around the store and you come back and surprise, there's all your prescriptions, and now you can get them from there going forward. It's not complicated. Prescriptions are a commodity. They'll do anything they can to get you to switch them over. So the tool that I use, the tool that we teach people to use is on the Medicare website, medicare.gov. And when you go onto the Medicare website, I probably should have just started this way. When you go onto the Medicare website, you're going to have this little green box right here that says Find Health and Drug Plans. So you want to go ahead and click on that. And I'm going to randomly pick a zip code. I'm going to pick a zip code in Ohio. I like Ohio for some reason or another. So you click Find Plans, and look what happened. Zip code 43003 sits in 2 counties, Delaware and Morrow. So we'll just pick one randomly. Obviously, you have verified this with the client. Now you're in another screen. First question they ask is, how do you get your Medicare coverage? If you're doing a Part D, well, you know that they get their Medicare coverage from Original Medicare, because you can't have a Part D and a Part C. We know this. Second question is do you get help from Medicare or your state to pay for prescription drug costs? Here, if you know that they get help from Social Security, you would click it in. Okay? For the purposes of this, we're going to assume that they do not get any help. I don't get any extra help. And then finally, do you want to add drugs? Of course. We're doing a training on prescription drugs. Absolutely. Of course, computers move really fast. Now over here is where you would enter in your drugs. Type the name of the drug. So I'm going to randomly pick a few I was thinking of that a lot of people are on. Metformin is one that comes up common. And if you take a look, when you type in metformin, is a chemical in 5 different medications, glipizide and so forth. So again, very important. You have to know precisely the medication they're on. So for this example, they're on regular metformin, and these are the different ways that metformin can come. And I could tell you this metformin is about 1,000 times more expensive than this metformin. Okay? So you need to be crystal clear. Do they have an extended release? Is it osmotic? Very, very, very crystal clear. So we're going to pick the more commonly dispensed one, 500 milligrams. Most people take metformin twice a day. See, it's already populated. It's populated as to the most commonly dispensed variations. The frequency, once a month. And then I'm going to keep this set on a retail pharmacy, and I'm going to show you why. So now I'm going to add the drug. Now look what happens over here in this area. All of a sudden, you have this drug list ID that has been created, and then a password date, which is today. You want to go ahead and write that down, and you want to store that in the client's folder. Why? Because you can always reference this back at a later date, and the prescription drugs that you have entered are already stored. You don't have to enter them in a second time. And they'll store this for years. Years and years and years and years and years. So very, very important. We use a virtual file cabinet. I just cut and paste it over to the fields. It's very easy. It's very simple. I'm going to add another drug. This one comes up a lot, which is Synthroid. Okay? Synthroid pops up, and person tells you, well, I'm on 88 micrograms, bit of a common dispense. I take that once a day. Add the drug, and look what happens. Medicare says, well, wait a second. There's a lower cost generic, which is called levothyroxine. Would you rather put that in than the brand name? So in this example, I'm going to keep the brand name because some of the clients that we have tried the generic equivalent of this drug, and the brand name is the one that worked better for them. And I'm also doing this for a specific reason, because not everybody does well with generic. So this is another layer of questions you have to ask. When this thing pops up, don't assume it's the name brand, and don't assume it's the generic. You got to ask. And then thirdly, I'm going to put in another drug that comes up a lot, which is simvastatin. Okay, now look, simvastatin shows up twice. You got to confirm which one it is. More often than not, it's this one, but you got to confirm. And it already populates the most common dose. You want to confirm that with people. the most common quantity dispensed, and go ahead and add the drug. Okay. Now, when we're done with the drug, down at the bottom in orange, it says my drug list is complete. Now it brings us to the pharmacy page. Okay. And you can tell that where this particular zip code is, they live in a real rural kind of spread out area because there's only one pharmacy within 8 miles. So I'm going to expand that a little bit. I always go to my go-to pharmacy for whatever reason. I like just using that one. It's very common. And then if they don't have a pharmacy that they prefer or use, the other one that I'll pick will be this guy right here. And I'm for purposes of training and the fact that this is going to be a public video, I'm going to refrain from mentioning any of their names, okay, because this is completely random. And then you go ahead and continue to plan results, and look what happens. You got some options here. If you folks were doing a Medicare Advantage analysis, guess what? In the middle is where you would click to get the Medicare Advantage plans with prescription drug coverage. But we're doing a PDP analysis, so we want to see these plans. Continue to plan results. When you get to this screen, always remember this trick. Now, one, because we're going to be in AAP, we're reviewing 2019 data. If you're doing a prescription drug plan for somebody for this calendar year, you got to switch over. Remember that, okay? However, the other trick right here is there are 26 plans found in this zip code. They automatically default to the View 10 viewing field, okay? You want to immediately go to View All. Drill that into your heads. Common practice. You don't do that, you might miss a plan or two. Now, what are the rules when comparing Medicare Advantage Part C and Part D plans? You are not allowed to compare plans with the beneficiary. You can do it for your own training and your own mindset and your own purposes, but you are not allowed to compare plans that you don't represent or market. You cannot do that. So we're going to just pick two that are pretty commonly recommended in the area, okay? Recommended by a bunch of different agents and so forth. And I'm going to just kind of pair the two up together, and I'm going to show you how I would look at these two and how I would help guide the consumer to making a recommendation. Okay. So first thing we take a look at is the premium. Okay. Both of these plans have a premium relatively about the same. So I would ask the client to write down $31.90 and $27.50. And again, this is just for training purposes. This is assumed that you are contracted, certified, authorized, able to sell, able to communicate with the various different insurance companies that you're going to be talking about. So again, this is just for training purposes. So I would have the client write down the two premiums, $31.90, $27.50. I would have them write down the deductible. One plan has a $0 deductible. The other one has a $415 deductible. And one thing you need to be clear about is, what does that deductible actually mean? Does it mean everything? Does it mean only tier 3 and 4 and 5? You got to be clear on that as well. The next thing I would do is I would go down and I would look at what their overall monthly drug costs are going to be, including plan premium. So over here, we're looking at $53.97 in a retail location. And then on the right side, we're looking at approximately $69.55, okay, in a retail location. So let's go look at the lesser desirable one first on the surface. Okay, again, on the surface. And when we take a look here, it looks like that in a retail location, it looks like between the two pharmacies, it looks like their medications are going to be less expensive in this environment than that environment, okay? Obviously, because it's branded together. And so that brings back what I was saying before. It's always important to know the pharmacies that they go to, and more importantly, always important to know whether or not they're willing to change a pharmacy. Because if somebody was dead set on this pharmacy, just going over to that pharmacy would save them almost $100 and something per month, okay? Now look what happens when I click here and I go to mail order, okay? Changes the whole dynamic, okay? A little bit less expensive, a little bit, not by much, but a little bit less expensive to get their mail order on a full year cost scale, okay? Full year cost based on a January enrollment, going into a retail location or getting a mail order is about the same. So I would write that down for my own sake. I would write down 805, 783. Now let's go back to the other plan that we're looking at. And I'll click on that one. Okay, and we go down a little bit. And again, retail location at this place, 2207. Retail location at that place, 2370, about the same. So obviously the original plan was a bit more attractive at this retail location, but we go to mail order, okay, brings the prices a little bit different. Now I go up to here. Now I got 647 on the low end for a retail location, and I got 582 for a mail order pharmacy. So the way that I would explain it to the client, we have two plans, relatively priced the same. One has no deductible, the other one has a deductible. The one without a deductible, if you switch to mail order, would cost you approximately $600 a year, $580. The other one, if you switch to mail order, would cost you close to $800 a year. Between the two, if you got prescribed something of an expensive nature through the year, you would be subject to the deductible in one plan, and you would be subject to the deductible in the other plan. Mr. and Mrs. Client, does it make sense for you to pay $4 more a month to avoid a deductible and have a better overall cost share? Yes, fantastic. That whole process that I just walked you through took about 10 minutes. Very, very, very quick for most people. I'm not saying that this is the rule. I'm not saying that this is the format that you should take. I'm not saying that these two companies that we looked at are the ones that you should always be looking at. But what I am saying is that the recommendation process is not a complicated recommendation process. The other things you can do here is there's a little quick little drug list here that you can print. And it's not branded. It doesn't have the person's name at all. It just has the date you did it, the drug list ID, the password date, the zip code. It has the drugs you entered and the quantity, okay? This is a good little tool if you're a paper file person to keep in your files. This is something you can always send to the client. It comes directly from Medicare. Another tool you can do is you can print the plan report. I don't know if I would get into the habit of sending this thing out, but it is a cool little thing. I guess as long as you got the definitions and all the fixings in it, but it'll show you what the plans would cost if you went to CVS, Walmart, mail order, and so forth. And it's a pretty cool report that comes up. Again, it's non-branded. There's no PHI. What's the word I'm looking for? Infringement, but that's not the word I'm looking for. But you're not compromising anybody's health. It's completely generic in nature other than a zip code. So completely generic in nature, and it'll give the client kind of a snapshot and an idea on how everything is going to look. And it's got some definitions, what is step therapy, what is quantity limit. You'll see this kind of stuff if you're, believe it or not, if you're putting in pain meds. Pain meds nowadays are big deal. So putting in pain meds, you'll see a lot of that stuff. But that's a cool report you can give. And then over here, I don't know what this is. So this kind of breaks it down, the cost sharing for this particular plan, okay, just because we were clicked on it. But it'll show you what the cost sharing is on a 30-day scale, on a 60-day scale, and so forth. I don't know from a compliance standpoint that you can give this to the client. I certainly would advise you not to. I think this is more for you. You do have to give the official plan materials to the client. But again, this is more for you to try to kind of give you an idea. Look at the pricing difference between preferred pharmacy and standard. I mean, it's almost double in some of the scenarios. So there's a lot of information here, a lot of things that you can do. If you have to change a prescription drug for whatever reason, you just go to where it says enter your drugs back up top. And then you can type in the drug. I had mentioned Novolog before. Okay, see how all the different ones pop up? You got to be really careful. Another common one a lot of people are on in retirement is they're on uh, like Prozac type of drugs. All right, that one comes up a lot, and so forth. Look what happens when you put that in. It asks you if you want the generic. You can add it that way, and then you just kind of click your way back through, and then it reprices everything, rechanges everything, and so forth. So that's how you do a prescription drug plan in 10 minutes or less. I want to thank everybody for this quick little video. What are the next steps? If you're part of our network, feel free to reach out to us for any additional questions or training you feel you need or want. We are always here. If you're not in our network, perhaps we should entertain a call to see if we're a good fit for you. We are not a one-size-fits-all. However, we do provide very detailed one-on-one training and support. If there are any of the carriers that you have seen here, because remember, I did not mention them, but if there are any of them that you have seen here in this training that you would like to learn more about and see if they can fit in your product portfolio, let us know. Email nationcareservices@gmail.com, call or text 561-276-3280. And my name is Joe Tritola, National Trainer and Insurance Agent. Thank you. Have a great AEP.